Well, hello everyone. Here I am again. I just finished reading your discussion boards on grant writing, and I wanted to talk to you guys about that a little bit because a lot of you have not written a grant before, and we're a little bit concerned about it. And I want to thank the people also who shared information related to their own experiences with grant writing, their successes. And also the people that shared tips that they had found or that they had used in the past that helped them with grant writing. So as you know from reading my bio, I've been a professional writer for many, many years. A songwriter for Disney, a writer. I do screenwriting. Thought I was going to sneeze. And I do article writing, essays, all sorts of things. And I've written many, many grants. Some of the grants that I've written for the district have been quite large grants. We're talking like 50 to 100,000. And some of the grants have been small. But in my experience and in my belief, the key to grant writing is very similar to when I'm working with people on the national board. And for those of you that are doing your master's now, you may want to consider working on your national board, while you are doing the master's or right after. Most districts give a really nice boost for national board teachers. It's usually 5%. Long Beach Unified is 5% for passing the national board and 10% if you choose to mentor or do extra, almost like community service hours for your school district in tutoring or in helping other national board teachers. And it's a nice incentive to get that certification. So you may want to consider that. But when I'm working with somebody on grant writing or passing the national board, what I see with people with writing is they over explain. And you want to be really clear and concise. It's not that you don't want to give details, but you don't want to be too wordy. And you want to make it really easy for whoever's looking at this grant to find the information they need, almost like bullet points, okay? And I'm not saying do bullet points, but I'm saying you have to find a way to do that within the parameters of the grant that make them see that you have met all the criteria quickly. And those grant applications tend to go to the top. And it's the same thing, we see the same thing in school with our students. Think about the essays that are really easy for you to read, okay? You want to have that same type of idea in your mind with grant writing. You don't want to give them any reason to throw it out or get bored with what you're saying or have to dig, make extra work looking for something. And you want to find a way to make it personal, okay? You still have to have that professional grant writing style, but you want to do something that makes it very personal and keeps the focus on you and your kids, or you and your class, or you and your grade level, or you and your district, or you and your whatever, you and your school. But you want to keep that focus so that they can really see you as this entity that absolutely needs this. And sometimes you can start out just small if you're not feeling comfortable with like a full-on grant. First of all, that's why I brought up Donors Choose, and a lot of you have success with Donors Choose because it's a really easy way to write a simple grant and get that up there quickly to buy things for your classroom. My experience in Donors Choose, the success has been smaller purchases, but there have been some friends that have gotten some larger purchases as well. A couple of you had talked, actually one person had talked about they were worried about the time constraint this week with writing the grant. That's why this week was either you could write a real grant or you could write a make-believe grant. But here's the thing. It's no different than any deadline with grant writing. When you decide that you want to write a grant, and we do this, we all do this. We try to teach our students not to do this, but we do it too. We'll sit down and we'll write something. And maybe we just don't feel like it's going the way we want it to go when we write it. And we're getting frustrated with our own writing, and we're just already feeling like, God, this is going to fail. Why am I doing this? But this is what you have to remember. You're the only person looking at that writing at that moment in time. We tend to let our minds go out to, somebody's, seeing it. They're not. It's the same thing when you talk to novelists or fiction writers, any writer. We often tell them, put it in a drawer for a while and then come back to it. And it sounds like a cliche idea, but it really works. Sometimes you have to just step away. And it's the same with grant writing. You're going to write a draft. It may not be the best first draft ever, but at least you've written it down. And so for me, grant writing is one, making the time to work on it, which of course is always such a struggle for all of us. And then two, writing something and then going back to it and cleaning it up and making it as clean and concise as I possibly can, taking out as much excess as I can while still making it sound wonderful. And I tell the kids all the time to read your work out loud. And if you aren't in the habit of doing that as writers when you're writing, it's really important to do. And I think that because I was a songwriter for so many years, professionally, that always helped me in my educational writing, because when you're reading it out loud and you're listening to the sound, you're listening to the flow. And good flow and good sound creates people to buy in. So just take your time with it and don't stress about it. So if you decide that you want to work on a grant, or a grant comes up, look at the timeline and set yourself an organized schedule to work on it. And don't get overwhelmed when you write a first draft and you don't feel that it's, your best. You'll get to your best. Sometimes it takes multiple drafts. Sometimes it takes 100 drafts. And you just keep moving forward and then you'll have a success. It's no different than submitting when you submit to a magazine. Sometimes you go for months and you just keep getting rejection. And you're like, oh, why am I even doing this? And then all of a sudden you get a rave and something gets published and you're stoked. And it's the same thing with grant writing. And before I started grant writing for the district and doing grant writing, and I don't do a lot of it anymore. I did a lot more of it in my 30s and my early 40s. But before I started doing grant writing for the district, I started getting in the habit of just asking for things locally. And I remember one time I asked local businesses if they might give money so that I could get school buses to take my kids to the museum. And I just started asking for small things like that and letting them know that it was a tax write-off and writing these, really lovely letters to people, and people started to give. In high school, David Sedaris was performing in Long Beach at what's that called? Not the amphitheater, the Terrace Theater. And I really wanted to take my 11th and 12th graders to see him because he's such a great humorist, a storyteller. But the tickets were like $40, $50 a ticket. There was no way my kids were going to be able to afford it. So I just wrote a really nice letter to his management. And David Sedaris actually got back to me and he said, this beautiful letter, and we love that you want to, take your kids, and we're going to give you 30 tickets. And we were like, okay. And so we were able to take kids, and fantastic seats, and David met them after the show. And so if you start with little things like that, it doesn't have to be an official grant. It could be something, a local business or a performer or someone that you just take the time to ask, and you write a clean, concise letter to them, and you keep you and your students and what you want in focus, and things will happen. Things will happen. I currently just wrote something to the Pantages and the foundation in New York that works with students to go see Hamilton, to get my students to one of the Pantages shows. So I will keep you posted on that. But that's what you do. So I'm looking forward to reading what you came up with. And remember that if you're not comfortable with what you created, then do another draft. And just don't let it overwhelm you. Grant writing is a lot easier than people realize. It's just following a checklist. And making sure everything's clean and clear. Have a good week, you guys. I'll talk to you later.